I took a look today at a pretty rare old SPI, um, not a quad game, but a tri game, I guess. This is a collection of three of SPI's old sci-fi titles, Starforce, Outreach, and Star Soldier, into what they call the Starforce Trilogy pack. And like a lot of SPI games from this era, which was the late 70s. I believe this was 77. They published it in flat packs, which are those horrible plastic, like over large plastic trays that usually turn yellow and fall to pieces, or most of them have degraded to that point, over the course of 35 years. The other way in which these were usually published were in the soap boxes, and I don't actually have a lot of the SPI soap boxes. Most of them are fairly expensive these days, but the only one that I currently have on my shelf is over here, Art of Siege, which is another, was sort of on my Grail list of games to get, and now that one was never available in a flat pack. It was only available in the soapbox, and apparently not a lot of them were made. So the same kind of holds true, as far as I know, for the Starforce Trilogy, which apparently, well, based on the search that I did anyway, much harder to find in the soapbox version than the flat pack version. Or you can just buy each game individually. They also published each of these games individually. I believe in boxed or flat pack versions of the individual games as well. In fact, I know, or I've seen, a designer's edition of Outreach. I think it was either Outreach or Starforce. I think Outreach. That were done in the designer's edition, which is an SPI imprint that mounts the map. So there's a version of our Outreach with a mounted board. I don't know if if designer's editions were ever done of Star Soldier or Star Force. But the soapbox of Starforce Trilogy, very difficult to find and pretty expensive. But I did not want to get the flat pack. I cannot stand the flat packs. I have one flat pack game of A Mighty Fortress, and I got that because I thought it was only available via flat pack, but apparently there are boxed copies of A Mighty Fortress out there in the wild. So if I can ever find one of those, I'll probably get the boxed version, get rid of the flat pack. Do not like the flat packs just because I can't store them very well, and most of them are usually not in the best shape. The plastic used for them just turns yellow the older it gets. And typically the back packing section, essentially it's a clear plastic sheet over a plastic counter tray that has like a cardboard backing glued into the back of it. That cardboard backing into the counter tray always falls to pieces. So anyway, no flat packs for me. I look for the box versions of SPI games where I can get them, and soapbox versions even more so. They call it a soapbox because it's like a giant box of detergent. I believe that's a 4-inch depth on the boxes for those. No companies make boxes like this anymore. The closest you will get would be the GMT 3-inch, like deluxe boxes that they use for the coin games, for example, or Dominant Species up there. But nothing that gets to the depth of the soapboxes. So let's take a look inside. Set the tripod down. And the cover is fairly, some people I guess would either love or hate SPI's graphic design of the era. I've always liked it, just because it has a very consistent theme to it or a consistent feel to it, mostly because Redmond Simonson did all of the graphic design for SPI. But this one here, they didn't do a special cover for it. They just literally took the 3 covers of the 3 separate games and stuck them on the front of this box with some credits and a description that says here in this one package, 3 great science fiction games, all sharing an original science fiction background as their basis. And it says up there the time is 2451 AD, although I don't know if it's the same year for all 3 of these games or not. I think one of them maybe Outreach. No, that's 3000 AD, so yeah, 25th century for Starforce and Star Soldier. Outreach is kind of the outlier then. It says down here at the bottom, serious science fiction and simulation game format. And as much as science fiction can be an actual simulation of anything. Inside, plenty of room, even with, there's counter trays in there. You'll have the rule books for each game. This is the rule book for Starforce. Black and white, typical, but in the classic SPI fashion of having the numbered sections that most wargame manufacturers today still emulate. Although I always loved the small text, or the small font size, the 3-column design in SPI rulebooks. Some nice illustrations in here. Most publishers today don't use a font this small, usually a slightly larger font. But I always kind of liked it. Get more text per page in there. So there's the rules for Starforce, and then there's this pad, which I'm not sure where I'll use this, or what. I assume it's for Starforce, but I don't know. I haven't read the rules. So, but simultaneous movement plotting chart, which apparently is not for this game. If you see the date down here, 1973, that predates these games by about 4 years. So I will unfold the maps and go over those separately. But we'll take a look here. This is unpunched. I've got just one sheet, it looks like, for Starforce. And, there really isn't anything better than the old flat matte finish SPI counters for stacking, and these have no backs on them. For stacking, organizing, moving, the matte counters are great, but I believe they don't hold up quite as well with repeated use as these slick, glossy counters do that most companies have today. Also, I don't think water would be very friendly to these if you get any water on them. That would soak right through. Here's the map for Star Soldier. And again, I'll unfold all the maps out for each game at the end of the video. Rules for Star Soldier, no illustration on the cover of this one. But again, same rules format, nice small font, 3 columns across. And here, one of the things that I never like to do, you can see the dotted line there. Hey, cut on the dotted line to cut these charts and tables out. Rather than mangle my rulebook, I'm more likely to scan or photocopy these and print them out on cardstock. Just don't like taking apart these old manuals like this, especially in a game like this that's a collector's item. I'm not collecting this just to collect it. I consider it a collector's item because it's a vintage game, but I will be punching out all these pieces and clipping them and playing the games. But you might say, well, if you're going to clip the counters, why not just rip the charts out of the manual? But that tends to, you have to mess with the staples to get these out without tearing stuff, and that tends to mess with the overall integrity of the rulebook, which is going to get a lot of use anyway from me reading it. So I tend not to like looks like Star Soldier record tracks, and just 2 of these. Looks like something else that, I guess 1 for each player. Although they're identical. And you probably move counters along there, I assume, rather than write on those. Interesting, though, that it's on paper and not cardstock, but I don't know if there are any cardstock inserts in these. And then here's the Star Soldier counter sheet. This is a bigger one that has a bit larger size. It's 2 counter sheets, essentially. But in the that old sort of Avalon Hill 70s and 80s style of counter sheets, where they're not quite like an 8.5 by 11 size counter sheet, but are connected and fold over. So 2 sheets here. And again, the excellent SPI matte finish counters with a excellent die cut. The only weakness of these older die cuts is sometimes they're not as straight as your more modern die cuts, but also there will usually be a pretty thick piece that's not cut at the top and bottom on each corner of these. So I usually cut them out with a rotary blade, and then I'll clip them, because there's no good way to get rid of the little pieces that stick off the edge of these older counters without actually clipping them. And unlike the other game, Outreach, there are backs on these counters, so a little more involved. And this is the map for Outreach. Look at that shortly. And it looks like this is a reference chart for Outreach. So here, don't have to cut these out of the manual. They actually printed them. Not exactly on cardstock, but like heavier stock paper, like construction paper here. Nothing on the back of these. And there are quite a few of them. So 4 of those, all identical. And the counters for Outreach, again, this is another double-sized counter sheet with, again, similar artwork on all these. I don't think the games are necessarily, they're not like 3 games you could join together into a giant campaign type game, but I think they are, or at least 2 of them deal with stuff kind of in the same universe. But they're all different scales. Like Star Soldier, I believe, is like a tactical level. And I thought Outreach was more of a 4X type game, where you're conquering the galaxy. I do love the cover art here. This is fantastic. It would be even cooler in color, but still a really neat look. Just lift that up to get a wider shot of it. But see the space station with the galaxy in the background and the nice star field. Pretty cool. And then, once again, typical 3-column SPI rules, covering all the different sequences in the game. No charts in here to be cut out, fortunately. Only 16 pages of rules, so none of these games have terribly long rules sections. Here's the covers to the counter trays, which are stuck together and yellowed with age. A couple of these tiny, super light, probably very inaccurate dice. I think that is, since there were 2 covers, there's 2 counter trays stuck together, and that's it. So here we have a look through the contents. I will put the counter sheets in the reference sheets back into the box, and the instructions. Leave the maps out, and I will lay the maps out and get video of those to finish out the video. And here's a look at the maps unfolded. As you can see here, this is the Outreach map, which has kind of a spiral galaxy look to it. If you zoom in, you can see that the map itself underneath the hex grid is actually a star field, but in different colors for the different sections of the board. So actually kind of pretty. I could see why people might be. It would seem to give people sort of two extremes to it. Either it's hideous or it's good looking. But I don't know. I guess I lean on the. I think it looks pretty cool. You don't see too many maps that have star fields behind the hex grid like that in wargaming. Not a lot of space-based wargame maps. So overall, a kind of a cool map, I think, and a little bit reminiscent of the cover with the galaxy in the background and the space station. So kind of a cool one for Outreach. Star Soldier. This is a more typical wargame map since this is a tactical level game. You can see here the map is a little, obviously, more traditional ground-based stuff. Looks like you've got some buildings there, and then according to, I don't know if there is a terrain key on here actually, because that is the scatter pattern. Not sure what for, maybe throwing grenades or something. And up here just a compass rose, but no key, it looks like. Interesting. So I'm guessing that blue, green, brown, green's probably trees, blue would be water. The brown and yellow are different elevations, I'm guessing, but all surmising. I haven't actually read the rules. So this map, just more typical SPI fare, but nothing particularly special. Certainly not in comparison to the fairly unique looking map for Outreach. And then last but not least, there's Starforce. And this is another one that's pretty Spartan in terms of what you're seeing on it. And this one, while seeming to replicate space, looks like a planetary system here with either planets or stars, I guess. Noted on the map, no star field here, unlike the Outreach map. But in a smaller scale map like this, where you've got different systems listed and stuff, the star field would probably make these smaller things tough to read. So I can see why they would leave it off here. Then you got your charts and tables and so forth around the edge of the map, as was common with SPI maps in this era. Kind of a lost art of maps. Maps don't have a lot of charts and tables like this anymore on them. The publishers tend to preserve the map space for game-related stuff, relating to the game itself, and offload those charts and things to cardstock charts separate from the map. So, of the three, the Outreach is my favorite. Star Soldier probably my least favorite. This one falling somewhere in between. But as with every SPI map, always a high degree of functionality. Sometimes at the expense of aesthetics, but I actually find the aesthetic value of a lot of the SPI maps still very, very pleasing. So, it just depends on what your aesthetic tastes are. That's always the most subjective part. The functionality part's always a little bit easier to read. So now that we have it, a look at the contents and the maps of the Starforce Trilogy.